Be'ezer Hashem, to say a few words regarding Zos Chanukah, the final day of Hanukkah. But you know that Zos Chanukah, the final day of Hanukkah, has a very special power. It's the Gemara Chasima, it's the final signing of the year. It's brought down in the name of the Holy Ruzhner, the Heilige Ruzhner. The Ruzhner said that what the great tzaddik and the great righteous people could affect change in this world on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur through their prayers, every simple person could affect change in their lives and draw down miracles and blessings on Zos Chanukah. So Zos Chanukah, the final day of Hanukkah, especially according to the deeper teachings of the Torah, is a very special time. So let's try to understand a little bit, what is Zos Chanukah? What is the specialty of this day? And how do we tap into this? How do we tap into this quality of the day that we can truly draw down miracles in a very deep way? So on Zos Chanukah, the simple thing that happens on the final day of Hanukkah, and if you're seeing this on Zos Chanukah itself, this is post lighting the menorah. So you light the menorah as soon as the final day of Hanukkah enters, and then you have 24 hours plus where it's Zos Chanukah, it's the final day of Hanukkah, but there's no action that has to be done. The Hanukkah candle's already lit. You have to be in a posture of Hallel and Hidah, being grateful, thankful, but there's no action. So this idea that it's a Yom Tov, it's a celebration, it's a holiday, and the day itself has a strong quality without actually having to do anything. Because most of the day, 95% of the day, especially if you light right in the beginning of Shkia, when the sun goes down, so 99% of the day, you're not doing anything, you're not anticipating doing anything. What does this remind us of? This reminds us of the Yom Tov, the holiday of Shmini Atzeres, which, according to Sefer Chashmonayim, and even according to the way Beis Shammai speaks about Parei HaChag, there's a link between Hanukkah, the 8 days of Hanukkah. Clearly there's a link between the 8 days of Hanukkah and the 8 days of Sukkot. So the final day of Hanukkah, which would be on the 8th day, which will symbolically represent the day of Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah. And what's the day of Shmini Atzeres Simchas Torah? What is that day? On the 8th day. So there's the cycle of the 7, Shivas Yomim. There's a 7-day cycle. The 7-day cycle represents the world of order, a structure, the natural world, and the 8 represents the place of infinity. Just like even symbolically, the way the number 8 is written is this infinite loop of movement. So the 8 represents the place where it's infinity. And what do we do in order to connect to this place that is beyond the world of infinity? What do we do to connect to this place? We stop doing anything, because the world of doing, this is what we do on Shmini Atzeres. The word Atzeres means atzor, to stop, to pause, to gather in. And what do we do on Shmini Atzeres? Shmini Atzeres, throughout Sukkot, the 6 days, 7 days of Sukkot, we celebrate by doing certain activities, whether it's sitting in the sukkah or shaking the lulav. In Hanukkah, it's by lighting the candles. And when finally comes the 8th day, we light the candles. But then the rest of the day, most of the day, is done in a place that's beyond Avodah, beyond any work. Why is it beyond any work? Because it represents the place of infinity, in the place of finitude, which is the place of our action. We're doing a thing. Doing is a place of our finite expression, whether it's a doing in a physical action or in words that we say, but it's a physical thing that we're doing, represents a place of our finitude, our expression of our finitude. In order to be connected to the place of our infinity, to be connected to the world of infinity, what we have to do is we have to stop doing. So the stopping to do, or the pausing to do, which we'll understand this deeply, what this means, is the avodah, is the work that's beyond work. It's the avodah that's beyond avodah. That is why, according to the opinion of Beis Hillel, the House of Hillel, which we rule according to this opinion, is the way we light the menorah, is that every day we increase. And there are two reasons, but one of the reasons is because Ma'ila Makodesh, which is principally the idea that we always have to increase in light. We always have to increase in matters of holiness, constantly extend and go further. So what happens on the 9th night or the 10th night? What happens when Hanukkah is over? The answer is that Hanukkah is never over. That although the miracle occurred for 8 days, and therefore we celebrate by lighting the candles for 8 days, but once we reach the point of infinity, which is beyond work, then it increases without us doing anything. So there is theoretically a 9th night, a 10th night of Hanukkah, so to speak, which means because once you reach a point of infinity, the light that we draw down is without end. So for 7 days we do the work. On the 8th day we connect ourselves to the place which is beyond work, beyond our doing, the place of our finitude, beyond the place of our finitude. We enter into the place of infinity, and therefore Hanukkah extends to the entire year, till next year we reach a spiral of time into a higher dimension. Then we have to light again from a deeper place. But Hanukkah is continuous. And that's the deeper reason why on Hanukkah there's no Havdalah, there's no separation, there's no process at the end of Hanukkah, no ritual where we separate Hanukkah from the rest of the day, from the rest of the days of the year, like we do on the end of Shabbos or end of any Yom Tov, any holiday. But the simple reason is because it's not a day that we're also in Malacha, just like on Purim. It's a day that we're allowed to do work. But the deeper reason, the mystical inner reason, that's from the perspective of the vessel, but from the perspective of the light. The reason why we don't do Havdalah, the reason why we don't do a ritual of separating Hanukkah from the rest of the year is because Hanukkah never ends. That is the idea of Hanukkah. You reach a point of infinity, and in the place of infinity, it continues forever. In general, this is not only specifically connected to Zos Chanukah, the final day of Hanukkah, but in general, if you think about Hanukkah for a second, you'll notice that the miracle of Hanukkah, especially the miracle that we celebrate post times of the Beis HaMikdash, certainly, second Beis HaMikdash, second temple period. The reason why we celebrate and how we celebrate Hanukkah, it has to do with the miracle, specifically, not the military victory, but specifically the miracle of the oil. What's the miracle of the oil? That they found a jug of oil, and the jug of oil, and they were in a state of impurity, and they found the jug of oil, and that oil, instead of lasting for 1 day, which was the amount that it was going to last, according to the Shultas, it wasn't even going to last 1 day. The Chidal says that's an incorrect version, but let's go. The normal version is that they found the jug of oil that was going to last for 1 day, and instead of lasting for 1 day, it lasted for 8 days, and that's the miracle that we celebrate. That's the miracle of Hanukkah. Now, if you think about this miracle is an unnecessary miracle. It's a ness that's not necessary. Why? Because every other miracle in the Torah that we celebrate, every other Yom Tov, every other holiday we celebrate for a miracle that occurred, let's say the splitting of the sea, or the going out of Egypt, or the story of Purim, it was a necessary miracle, which means if there was no miracle in the story where Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, finding at the sea, and the sea did not split, then they would have been conquered by the Egyptians that were following them, or thrown into the sea. If there was no miracles in the story of the going out of Egypt, which we celebrate on Pesach, then we would still be stuck in Egypt. If there was no miracle, God forbid, in the story of the Purim story, then Klal Yisrael would have suffered the annihilation of everyone that lived in that kingdom, which is the majority of the world. Which means the miracle, if the alternative to the miracle was destruction. So the miracle was a necessary miracle. There was a condition, the possibility of annihilation, the possibility of destruction, the possibility of something terribly negative happening, and then the miracle occurs, which is a necessity. That's a necessity for survival. It's like when a parent gives a child food, and if they don't give the child the food is gonna go hungry. That's a necessity. That's a kindness of the parents towards the child from a place of necessity. That's one type of blessing. But the miracle of Hanukkah is completely unnecessary. Number one, it's unnecessarily, like the Pnei Yeshua points out, that they found a jug of oil that would last them instead of for 1 night, a pure jug of oil would last them for 8 nights. But technically, since Tuma, impurity, is the Chuya B'tzibur, at least according to the Rambam, which means it's pushed aside when the collective, when everyone else is, when everyone is in the state of impurity. So theoretically, the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, when they entered into the Beis HaMikdash, into the temple, and they didn't find pure oil, they were allowed to light with impure oil. But let's go even further. Let's assume that they did not find any oil, not pure oil and not impure oil. And then what would have happened? Just like the night before, and the months before maybe, or even the years before, the menorah was not lit because the menorah was under Greek rule, and it was converted to a place of tiflus, and it was overrun. So the menorah was not lit. So if they were victorious and they entered into the Beis Hamikdash, entered the temple, and they didn't find any oil, not even impure oil. Let's say they found no oil. There was no oil to be found in the entire Jerusalem, in the entire Israel. There was no oil to be found. So what would have happened? They wouldn't have lit the menorah. So they wouldn't have lit the menorah. Okay, it's obviously a beautiful mitzvah, and it's a mitzvah to light the menorah. But if they can't light the menorah, there's no oil, so they didn't light the menorah. So what would be the big deal? So why was there a miracle to begin with? Why did it have to be a miracle? And the answer is that this was not a necessary miracle. It wasn't a miracle because of a necessity. It wasn't. The alternative would have been the absence of, the annihilation of Klal Yisrael, Chas v'Shalom. The alternative wouldn't have been the annihilation of the people of Israel, or some type of terrible catastrophe that would have happened. It's not true. Everything would have just been fine. So why was there a miracle? The miracle came because of chavivus, because of divine desire. It was not a place of necessity. It was a place of love, a pure love. That's why when the Rambam discusses the laws of Hanukkah, it says mitzvah Hanukkah, mitzvah chavivi ad moed. It's very precious, and the reason why it's precious is because it wasn't a necessary. It's like, for example, a parent that gives a child something. Sometimes a parent gives a child, let's say a very young child, gives a child food to eat. Of course, the child is appreciative. And everyone should always be appreciative to whatever you're given, but that's a necessity. If the parent doesn't give the child food, the child, God forbid, goes hungry. But then the parent gives a child something that is not a necessary. They give them something extra. They give them dessert, or they give them something extra, a toy, or some type of gift. Where does that come from? That comes because the child is precious to the parent, because it's chaviv, it's chavivus, it's precious. That's not a miracle. That's not a blessing from a place of necessity. That's a blessing from a place of love, from pure love. So we respond, chavivahim emoid. It becomes chaviv. That's why we do the mitzvah with hider mitzvah and mahadim rahadim. We do the mitzvah extra careful, because it was an act of love on the divine part, not in a strict letter of the law, not because it was a necessity, because it was an act of love, and therefore we respond we receive it as an act of love. This chaviv, this preciousness, that mitzvah chavivi ad ma'od, is connected to the other teaching where we find in the end of Megillah, where Rav Rashbi says, Rav Shimon Yochai says, that chaviv Yisrael, shekol makav shegala shechina imam. That chavivim Yisrael. Chaviv means that it's precious. Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, are precious to Hashem. It's chavivim Yisrael. Shekol makav shegala shechina imam. That wherever we go, that's where the Shekhinah appears. That's a place where the miracle of Hashem's presence with us, wherever we are, which is the story of Hanukkah, is not a necessity. It's not needed. It's not required, but it's an extra because of the chavivus. Where is that source of chavivus? Where is that source of that unnecessary miracle come from? That unnecessary blessing come from? That comes from a place of kesser. That comes from a place of pure desire, divine desire. And in that place of kesser, there's no opposite. There's no alternative. In the place of Zorampin, in the place of chsadim that comes from Zorampin, in the place of kindness that comes from the constricted face or the small face, that's a place of a duality. And in the place of duality, there's the alternative, which is gevura, restriction, annihilation, hardship. And then, from the place of necessity, Hashem gives us, hopefully Hashem gives us chsadim, reveals chsadim into our lives to undo and to mitigate or to transform those negative things, those negative situations, into something that's positive. But that's the world where there's a duality, there's an alternative. It's possible to receive and it's possible not to receive. Either you're going to, in the metaphor, obviously, but either there's going to be annihilation or destruction, or there's going to be giving and there's going to be kindness. That's the place where there's a possibility for an alternative. But in the place of Chavivim Yisrael, in the place where there's pure love, in the place of pure love, there's no. The reason why there's the giving in the place of this pure love, in the place of kesser, is not because something is not because of a certain type of cheshbon, a certain type of thinking through a certain process and saying, oh, I think this is a situation where if I don't feed my child, the child is going to go hungry. There's a type of love that originates from a place in a parent, for example, we're using this as a metaphor, where the parent's love for a child is absolute without actually any alternative. There's no alternative to not loving. There's a type of love that a parent has for a child. There's a revealed love that a parent has for a child, and it's something the child maybe you're annoyed by your child or dislike this, but that's all in the world of the duality. But then there's the real pnimius love, the real deepest love of a parent or child is absolute and without an alternative. That's the love that was revealed in Hanukkah. The love that was revealed in the Hanukkah, that there is no possibility for any other situation. So therefore, the way it's reflected in our receiving that type of light, this is why specifically this type, the miracle is revealed even more, the blessings and these miracles are revealed even more in Zos Chanukah, on the final day of Hanukkah, is because there's no longer any doing. Because doing means that there's still a duality. I can do and I cannot do. Let's say a child could do something and find favor in the parent's eyes, and therefore the parent will show a little bit more love to them, or more blessings to them, or giving to them. Or the opposite, and the parent will show a little bit more restraint. That's in the world of doing. There's a possible that it should come, or it's possible that it shouldn't come. But then there's a place where it has nothing to do with your child doing or not doing. Just the child being is the reason for the love that you have for your child. That's the highest, deepest love. That's the love that's not a dependent on a doing. It's something that's beyond a doing. It's a child is showing up. And then the love is natural and without an alternative. And that is the light that's revealed on Hanukkah. The chavivus, the light of kesser, the light of infinite possibility where there is no alternative for something else. And when we receive such light, we have to also receive it in that way. Because sometimes we receive light, receive the divine blessings, we receive it in a place of a duality, which is we think because we did a certain amount of things, therefore we receive something. And we're always afraid that if we stop doing these things, we're not going to receive. And that's true in the world of a duality, where you're receiving because of a certain reason, which is constricted state. And when a person lives in this state, they're receiving a lot of chesed, they're receiving a lot of kindness, but they're always worried that when is the shoe going to drop? They're receiving blessings, and they're grateful for the blessings they have in their lives. And they feel blessing, they feel blessed, and they feel that they're receiving blessings, but there's always in their mind an alternative, because it shows up in their life, in their mind, because of a certain doing that they did, because I'm doing this particular thing or that particular thing, and therefore I'm receiving these blessings. What if I stop doing it, if I'm not doing it correctly? And then there's a higher level of blessings, which is beyond doing. It's the blessings that come from a place of kesser, the place of Chaviv Yisrael. We're kol makom shagalu, wherever you are, I'm there, Hashem says. I'm always there, and I always want to give you. I have to ask Hashem, and I want to give you because that's the source of my greatest desire, my greatest pleasure. Is tevel ha'tov l'heitiv, the nature of the good is to give good. That's my nature, to give you what I need, what you need, and whatever you need in the tremendous amount of blessings that you receive. So what do we do on Zos Chanukah? Is there anything to do? Because we're saying that's beyond doing. So there's a story with a great tzaddik, Rav David Lelov, that was once about to light the Hanukkah candles in public, and his chassidim, his followers, are all standing around him, and he's pacing the room back and forth, and he's not lighting the candles. And finally he turns around and says, "Where is Herschel the Hecher? Where is Herschel, the tall one?" Everyone in that city was, let's say, Eastern European Jews. They were 5'5", shorter Jews. Then there's one guy that was really tall. I don't know how tall. Let's say he was over 6 feet. And he calls over the Herschel the Hecher and says, "I need to ask you a question." And this chassid, this follower, this disciple, bends down to his Rebbe, his master, and says, "Rebbe, what's the question?" He says, "You're very tall." He says, "Yeah, that's correct. I'm very tall." He says, "Your wife is very, very short." He says, "Yes, my wife is actually very short." So he says, "How do you talk to her? If you're very tall, how do you talk to her?" She says, the Gemara says, "It's a good gachem alachish." Says the Gemara says that if your wife is very short, which is obviously also metaphorically speaking, also as well, in terms of relationships, how this works, that if your wife is short, if your spouse is short, bend down and talk to them and whisper to them. So he says, "Okay, that's beautiful that you bend down and you reach and you talk to her." He says, "But when you bend down, you're a tall man, do you actually reach her ears? Could she hear you?" She says, "No, actually we're like an inch off. So even if I bend down, she's so short that I can't really reach all the way down." So she says, "So what happens is my wife has to get up on her tippy toes. And when she gets on her tippy toes, when she gets on her toes, that's when I can talk to her into her ear. And the Rebbe's life, the Reb Davidel's face lights up, and he gets all excited and passionate, and he goes and lights the menorah. His disciples asked him, what was that all about? And he said, he knows that Hanukkah, there's a tremendous amount of light that comes down to this world. A tremendous amount of source of blessings and miracles that come down into this world. Lamat Masar Tvachim, and the blessings come down even to the lowest places. That's why we light the menorah very close to the ground. It's the light of Hashem that comes down even to the place Chavivim Yisrael, Shekol Malkim Shagal Shchinimam, the Chavivus, the love that Hashem has for us, that even in the lowest places Hashem comes to us and is there and is present in there. So he says he was just wondering, how could he light the menorah? How does he receive this light? So he asked the tallest man in the room, how do you speak to your wife? And that's obviously a metaphor between us and Hashem. And he said, I bend down. He said, that's what Hashem is doing. He's bending down. Hashem is bending down to us. He's drawing down the light to us. He says, so what do we have to do? We have to get on our tippy toes. We have to just kindle the candles. And that's when he lit the candles. That is true for the entire day of Hanukkah. For all the 7 days, the structure of doing, even on the 8th day, the beginning of entering into the infinite loop of beyond doing. But what do we do on the day of Hanukkah? On the final day of Hanukkah? On the final day of Hanukkah, we just have to show up. It's like the child that's estranged from his parents. And the parent wants to give to the child. The father or mother wants to give to the child. But the child's not home. The child's not present. And then one day the child just shows up. And the parent just showers him with love. All Hashem is asking from us on Zos Chanukah is that we show up, that we take notice. One of the great revealings of Hanukkah, which is explained, the Sichos explained great length. The miracle of Hanukkah is not so much the miracle in the oil, which is various different opinions of the Beis Yosef, how exactly they divided the oil, but a deeper understanding is that it's a miracle actually in the light. There are different types of light in this world. There's a light that the Zohar Kodesh writes. If you look in the flame, there's a light that's connected to the red and to the blue and to the jumping and to the movement, which is the light of fluctuation and a movement of passion. And in order for that light to exist, it has to cancel something else. It has to destroy something else. It has to eat. It has to eat the wick and draw from the oil, which is one type of light. There's a certain type of people in this world that have a certain light, that their light only exists by eliminating other people. They walk into the room and they want to shine, and the only way to shine is if they make other people quiet. If they feed off the other people. That's one type of, that's a lower light. But then there's a higher light, which is the glow that hovers around the light, that hovers around the candle, that hovers around the flame. And that's a light that doesn't consume, and it's always present, never changing. That light is the light that we find in the beginning of creation. That's called the Aragonas, the hidden light. In the Torah describes the creation story, and the first day of creation, and the Torah describes that there was light, there was an oir. But that oir, that light, is not a light that exists in fire, because that was created much later. It's not the light of the sun and moon, which is created on the fourth day. It's a different type of light. It's a higher light. That light appears, the Torah describes this light, oir, 5 times, says the word oir. 5 times it says the word light. It says the Zohar Kodesh that these 5 times correspond to the 5 times that the word sneb appears in the beginning of Shema. It's just like in the beginning of Bereshis, the beginning of the book of Genesis. The word light appears 5 times. And Vayihi Or is the 25th word, which the Rekech writes representing the idea of Hanukkah, Chanukah, the revealing of the 25 lights. The revealing of the 25th, which is the light of the beginning of creation. The Aragon is the hidden light. These 5 times correspond to the 5 times that Moshe encounters in the burning bush. The sneh is the burning bush. He encounters a light. Which light? He encounters the Aragonus. He encounters that light. And the truth is, what is that light? That is a light that asneh in ukol, that the sneh, the thorn bush, is not being consumed. It's a light that exists, that is present in the sneh. In the language of the Medrash, the Medrash says that's the tzimtzum. That's the way Hashem is with tzamtzum, constricts itself. That's the origin of the word tzimtzum. Nari and Teres Ari is from this Medrash, and also the Medrash tzimtzum b'nei Aaron. Hashem constricts himself between the poles of the ark. These are the 2 times that the Medrash uses the word tzimtzum, which means that what is the or? The or is the or of Hashem, Hashem's light, Shem Eka, that is revealed in the place of the sneh. That the sneh doesn't disappear, the thorn bush doesn't disappear. It's still a thorn bush, it's still present, and it's still thorny, and it's still constricted, and it represents exile, and represents constriction. But there's a light there, and that light shines brightly. This light that Moshe received, when Moshe was privy to see on the deepest reading, like Sfas Emes, the other tzaddikim write, on the deepest reading, everything that happens in the Torah, our Meir writes this, and the Rebbe Baal Shem writes this, that everything that happens in the Torah happens always to everyone, all the time. When it says that Hashem tells Avram Avinu, Lech lecha ma'artzecha, leave your land, this is not a one-time call only to Avram. This is a call to every single person from the beginning of the story of creation. Avram was the first one to hear that voice. And so should we hear that voice. When it says that Moshe Rabbeinu came to the bush and he saw that he saw this, he saw the fire. This sneh, this light exists for all time, in every place, in every generation, to every person. There's always the Or, there's always the light of the Or HaGonos that's resting. There's always the place of Kol Makom Shegal Shechina. There's always the place of the Shechina, the divine presence that rests within all your sneh, within all your constrictions, with all your hardships. That's the light of Hanukkah that's revealed. But why was Moshe chosen? Why was Moshe chosen from all other people to become the Redeemer, the Bechinas Das, the one that gets us out of exile? In the Moshe Aprati, Moshe should be Kirbucha, the Moshe Zutra Sehi, that, like the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, the inner Moshe that brings redemption, the China of Das, the level of conscious awareness that brings us out of our exile. What did Moshe do that was so unusual? Is Vayar Hashem Kisar Liris. Hashem saw that Moshe paused and stopped and took notice. That was the greatness of Moshe. The greatness of Moshe was the first person in history to notice the light of the Or HaGonos that is always burning in the sneh, that is always burning in the thorn bush. And that's the Avodah. That's beyond Avodah. All we need to do is take notice. Show up and take notice. It's not even getting on our tippy toes. Getting on your tippy toes, which is the Avodah of Hanukkah, is to become a little hecher, to get out of ourselves, to become a little bit more, to break out of our own constrictions a little bit. That's to get up on our tippy toes. That's what we have to do it every night of Hanukkah. That's the process of kindling in the Torah. But on Zos Chanukah, when we already kindled this, it's a place that's beyond Avodah. All we need to do is like the child that shows up to the parent's home and says, Hineni, I'm here. And the parent just wants to give them love. All we have to do is just show up and recognize that Hashem is present with us, that the Or is always there, and show up. Vayar Hashem Kisar Liris, that we just stop and pause and notice. And that's what we have to do, just to show up. Show up on Zos Chanukah. Show up and say Hashem Hineni. And then, in the place of constriction, in the place that a person maybe does feel constricted and feels hardship, we should know that Vayomer Elokim Yor. We have to tell Hashem, I recognize that there's light. But we have to tell Vayomer Elokim, like the Baditcher says, Vayomer Elokim is Hashem, is Klal Yisrael talking. We're talking to Hashem. Us, creation, is talking back to Hashem. It says Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or. We tell Hashem, we tell Elokim the place of constriction, we say, yes, we're in the sneh, and it's very difficult. Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or. Let there be light. Let there be the Or of Hanukkah. Let there be the light of the Nisim, the unnecessary Nisim, the unnecessary miracles. That's the 25th word of the Torah. Let there be miracles in a way that is not because of the necessity, because we're in hardship, and therefore we need to get out of our situation. And therefore, because we need to get out of our situation, we need light. Vayomer Elokim Yihi Or. Let this be light. Let there be light in a way that there's no hardship any longer. And Vayomer Hashem Yihi Or. Vayomer Yihi Or. Vayihi Or. Vayomer Elokim, we tell Elokim, let there be light. Vayihi Or, and there's light. There's a light that then is revealed itself in its purest form, in its purest blessing. And that's what we have to do. That's the Avodah, that's beyond Avodah. That's the work that we have to do beyond work, is just showing up and recognizing that there is the light, and requesting that this light should not just be the present, which always is, but it's revealed in a way that's full of blessings, which is the light, the way it wants to reveal itself in its correct form, in an infinite amount of blessings, in a way that there's no alternative, because it comes from a place of pure love and the deepest place of kesser. He should have a wonderful Zos Chanukah.